Like the other Vicky Kaushal biopic Sardar Udham, Chava finds its throbbing pulse in the last half hour or so. Writer-director Laxman Utekar doesn't match the blistering brilliance of Shujit Sarkar, but in this last stretch, he comes into his own, blending brutality with patriotism and poetry. It's at once rousing and repulsive. The situation is this. The revered Maratha king Sambhaji Maharaj, also known as Chava or lion's cub, is finally face to face with the Mughal emperor Aurangzeb. By this time, Aurangzeb has been chasing Sambhaji for 9 years. It is not a battle of equals because the Mughal army is 8 lakh strong, while the Maratha army numbers 25,000. At the beginning of the long, drawn-out conflict, Aurangzeb's daughter Zeenat derisively declares that the Mughal army has more cooks than the Maratha army has soldiers. As it turns out, that's enough. But eventually, warning, this is a spoiler alert for those who don't know the history, Sambhaji Maharaj is betrayed, captured, and tortured horrifically. But somehow, even as he dies, flesh and bone tearing inch by inch, Sambhaji becomes more majestic and Aurangzeb more shriveled. Utekar stages these scenes with fervor and skill, going for close-ups so we can see the extent of damage inflicted on Sambhaji's body. But he barely flinches. At one point, his head hangs and blood drips down his beard, and yet, with words alone, Sambhaji slices Aurangzeb's might. The emperor of Hindustan comes off as a miserable coward. It's a shocking scenario which holds together because the actors don't falter. Laxman's masterstroke is casting Akshaye Khanna as Aurangzeb, a man so twisted and cruel that he seems almost bored by his own appetite for death and destruction. His crown brings him little solace. He seems haunted, not because he's killed his brother and imprisoned his father to become an emperor, but because Sambhaji's valor mocks his authority. Even when he wins, there is little joy in it. Aurangzeb is very much a villain. Laxman is not a proponent of complexity, so the Marathas are mostly virtuous and courageous, and the Mughals are uniformly malevolent. And yet, Akshay humanizes Aurangzeb. He makes him vicious, but somehow also pathetic. And what powers these last sequences is the towering inferno that is Vicky Kaushal. He's massively bulked up, but the momentum comes not from those muscles, but his attitude, his defiant gaze. In the hands of a lesser actor, Sambhaji's superhuman resilience might have felt false, but Vicky makes it believable. As the Welsh poet Dylan Thomas wrote, "Do not go gentle into that good night. Rage, rage against the dying of the light." Words which Christopher Nolan put to such good use in Interstellar. Sambhaji Maharaj is fire and brimstone, unrelenting till his last breath. However, it takes more than 2 hours to get here, and that is the challenge. Chava is a great leap for Laxman as a director. His last 3 films are Zara Hatke Zara Bachke, Mimi and Luka Chupi, all modest, mid-budget stories about middle-class characters. Chava is his first historical. The film is based on the Marathi novel Chava. Incidentally, Sambhaji Maharaj's life is so enthralling that it's provided fodder for more than 60 plays and 15 novels, which might explain why Laxman comes to the material with such reverence that he almost forgets to create flesh and blood characters or tell a riveting story. The first half is flat, it's slow-paced. The screenplay and adaptation by Laxman, Rishi Virmani, Kaustubh Savarkar, Unman Bankar and Omkar Mahajan establishes the principal characters and conflict. Of course, the one with Aurangzeb, which Sambhaji's valiant father Shivaji Maharaj fought until his death, but also the internal power play. Sambhaji's stepmother, Soirabai, is eager to put her son on the throne. She is played by Divya Datta, who's a fine actor, but here her brief seems to be stare into the distance and don't blink. Chava is one of those films in which characters don't have conversation, they make pronouncements. So even when Sambhaji is alone with his wife Yesubai, there's little informality. Their posture is rigid, their lines are stilted, which makes you once again admire the way in which Sanjay Leela Bhansali is able to make historical characters human, especially in Bajirao Mastani. The worst served in Chava is Diana Penty, who plays Zeenat. Through the first half, she barely speaks. And when she finally gets to talk, she says lines like, "Zaban halak se alag kar do." Rashmika Mandana does better as Yesubai. By this account, the relationship between Sambhaji and Yesubai was a real partnership. While he was away, he put the reins of power in her hands. She ran the kingdom. He addressed her as Sakhi, which is remarkable when you consider that this happened in the 17th century. But the film isn't able to make this bond come alive, largely because the characters are allowed little variation. They're mostly exhibiting courage or expressing patriotic feelings. A.R. Rahman's booming score works strenuously to lift the storytelling, and costume designer Sheetal Sharma does some exquisite work. But for much of that first stretch, Chava comes off as an inert tableau. The VFX quality is really dodgy, especially that digital lion. This is a film with ambition and passion. Watch the way in which Laxman and action directors Parvez Sheikh and Todor Lazarov choreograph the battles, especially that last one in which Vicky transforms into a thundering killing machine. But even incredible stories of great men and jaw-dropping courage need nuance to land. One note can only play that long. If you like this review, do subscribe to The Hollywood Reporter India.